John Carter lived in the warm lands of the American Southwest, where the sky stretched wide and the desert wind carried the smell of dust and cactus flowers. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, fed his horses, and checked his fences. He liked a peaceful life. He cared for his land, his animals, and the few trusted friends who lived far apart in that large empty area. The world around him was changing. New people arrived from faraway states, bringing dreams of farms, money, and fresh starts. But not everyone understood the land, or those who lived here long before. The Apache tribes called this place home for hundreds of years. Many settlers did not try to understand them. This created worry in the hearts of both sides. Sometimes, even a small misunderstanding grew into trouble. John tried to stay away from any problem. He did not dislike anyone. He believed that every person, no matter where they came from, deserved respect. He had met Apache families before. They were quiet, strong, and loved their traditions. Their children played near the rivers. Their elders prayed at sunrise. John respected them with a calm heart. One late afternoon, John was bringing his cattle back home when he heard loud voices coming from a distance. They were angry and harsh. His horse stopped and lifted its ears, as if it also felt something wrong. John looked around. The golden sun was falling behind red hills, and a group of men stood near an old tree. At first, John thought they might be talking loudly or arguing about a lost animal, which sometimes happened. But then he noticed something else. Someone small stood in the middle of the group. Surrounded by them, his heart tightened. It looked like a child. He slowly rode closer. He saw that the group was holding ropes and shouting about a problem with livestock. They said an Apache child came too close to their ranches. They believed her presence meant trouble. John could hear fear and misunderstanding in their angry voices. The child was a young Apache girl. Her hands were tied. She looked scared but also strong inside. Her dark hair blew in the wind, and her eyes were full of silent prayers. She did not cry. She just looked at the sky, as if trusting it more than the people around her. John's horse stopped a little distance away. He felt his heart beat faster. He knew he needed to do something. He took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. The men noticed him. They called out his name and said they wanted to protect their ranches. John knew the girl did not come with bad intentions. She looked too young to cause problems. He decided to speak carefully. With steady steps, he walked closer, his boots touching dry grass. He held his hat in his hand to show he meant no harm. "Friends," he said in a calm voice, "she is just a child. Let's think before we do something we cannot change." Some of the men argued. They were scared of losing their animals again. They thought being strict would keep everything safe. John understood their fear but also knew fear was not a reason to hurt someone innocent. He looked at the little girl. She stood with quiet pride. Even in this moment, she did not scream. Her eyes met his, and John felt a deep need to help her. "You know me," John said again, gently but firmly. "We must find peace here. If we start hurting children, this land will never rest." There was silence. A few men lowered their heads, thinking about his words. Slowly, John stepped forward and untied the girl's hands. No one stopped him now. The girl breathed deeply for the first time in minutes. She looked at John with surprise and gratitude. "You are safe now," he whispered. John did not want the moment to turn into more trouble. He asked the men to go home and rest. After a long pause, they finally agreed. They said they trusted John to handle the situation. One by one, they left, taking their fear and anger with them. When they were gone, John helped the girl sit down near a rock. She looked tired, but she still held herself with strength. John brought her water from a small leather bottle he carried on his belt. She drank slowly, her hands shaking a little. "What is your name?" John asked softly. She took a moment, then answered with a quiet but brave voice. "Kaya." John smiled kindly. "I'm John." Kaya looked around carefully, making sure the men were not coming back. She pointed toward the nearby hills. "My family is there," she said. Her English was simple, but her meaning was clear. John nodded. Even though the sun was low, and the night would soon bring cold winds, he knew she could not stay here. He brought his horse closer and helped Kaya climb up. She was light like a feather, and her small feet barely reached the stirrups. John held the reins and walked beside the horse as they started moving toward the direction she showed. The desert quieted around them. Stars began to appear one by one in the sky. A soft moon climbed above the hills, giving everything a silver glow. John and Kaya traveled slowly but steadily. She did not speak much, but every now and then she looked at John with thankful eyes. After some time, they reached a place where footprints showed someone had recently walked. Kaya pointed ahead, and John stopped. He helped her down from the horse. Before she left, she turned and looked at him. There was something strong and unforgettable in her expression. "You helped me," she said. "I will remember." John smiled gently. "Be safe with your family." Kaya placed her hand on her heart, a sign of deep respect. She pointed to him again. "One day, I will come back for you," she said softly, but with a promise that felt powerful. Then she walked toward the shadows of the hills, where the shapes of people waited. They welcomed her quietly and disappeared with her into the night. John stood alone under the wide sky, feeling something change deep inside him. He did not know if he would ever see Kaya again, but he hoped she would grow strong and happy with her people. He climbed onto his horse and rode home, listening to the peaceful sound of wind through the tall grass. His life would continue as before. Ranch work, friendly visits, and quiet evenings by the fire. But he would always remember that brave young girl and the promise she made. Every night afterward, when John looked at the stars over his ranch, he wondered where Kaya was. He hoped she was surrounded by love, learning her tribe's ways, and living without fear. And though time moved on, he never forgot the moment when a simple act of kindness connected two very different lives forever. Years passed like soft winds across the desert, changing everything slowly but surely. John Carter continued to wake early every morning, open the barn doors, and feed his animals. The sun rose and set each day just like before, but there was a tiny memory tucked safely in his heart, a memory that never faded: the brave Apache girl named Kaya. He often wondered what kind of person she had grown into. Was she healthy? Was she happy? Did she remember him as she once promised? While working around the ranch, sometimes he would stop and gaze at the distant hills. He imagined that somewhere behind those hills, Kaya might be learning the songs of her people, laughing around a fire, or riding a horse of her own. John was a simple rancher. He was not the kind of man people wrote stories about, but his heart was strong and filled with hope. Even though he never said the memory aloud, he kept it close. The night sky always reminded him of Kaya's promise. "One day, I will come back for you." He did not think she meant anything grand by those words. Maybe just a kind hope of seeing a friend again someday. Life on the ranch was peaceful most days. John knew every sound the land made: the call of birds at sunrise, the soft steps of a deer on the dry ground, the whisper of leaves when the wind moved through the cottonwood trees. Nature was his friend. The animals trusted him. Even the horses seemed to understand his quiet heart. But not everything outside his ranch felt as calm. More people kept coming to the southwest. The new towns grew bigger and busier. Roads stretched farther. More fences were built. The sound of hammers and wagons traveled across the land. Some new settlers didn't understand the way things had been before they arrived. They wanted land and safety, but didn't always see how their actions affected others. Stories spread about misunderstandings between newcomers and the Apache tribes. Some said the tribes wanted to protect their homes. Others said the settlers were simply afraid of the unknown. These fears sometimes turned simple disagreements into long-lasting tension. John still tried to stay away from conflict. He spent his days caring for his animals and making sure the ranch was in good shape. He didn't seek trouble, and he stayed friendly with everyone who came his way. But there were times he heard unkind talk, people speaking about the tribes without respect, making wrong guesses about them. John would never forget the day he met Kaya. He knew her people were just like any others, families who loved their children, laughed together, told stories under the stars, and wished for a peaceful life. If all people sat down and shared food and stories, maybe they would see how similar they truly were. Years turned into nearly 2 decades. The quiet young rancher slowly became a man with lines of experience on his face and a touch of silver in his hair. His strength remained but carried the wisdom of time. He still rode his horse each morning and cleaned the same small house he had built with his own hands. People came and went in the town nearby. Friends visited sometimes, sharing meals and stories. John was polite and kind to all, but no friend ever reached the depth of that memory he held. To him, Kaya was a symbol of something pure goodness surviving a difficult moment. One evening, as John sat outside his ranch house watching the sun melt into the horizon, he heard travelers passing by the gate. They stopped for water at the well he kept near the road. John walked over to greet them. The family was tired from a long journey, seeking a new home in this wide land. The father spoke about strange news he had heard while traveling. He said there was an Apache leader who had become known far and wide. She was respected by many and listened to by elders and warriors alike. She was said to be wise beyond her years and fair in every decision she made. People whispered her name with admiration and trust. Kaya. John's heart stopped for a moment. Could it be the same girl he saved so long ago? A child who once stood quietly with courage, now becoming a symbol of strength? The idea filled him with pride. He did not tell the travelers that he once knew her. Some memories were too precious to speak easily. After the family left, John stood still for a long time, his eyes lost in the direction of the hills. He thought about how far she must have come, how much she had learned, and how strong she must be to guide her people in a world that was often unsure and complicated. He felt hope that maybe she was truly safe and surrounded by supportive people who valued her. The days continued, but John paid more attention to the world beyond his fences. He listened for every rumor, every mention of an Apache leader. The stories became more detailed. They spoke of a woman who encouraged peace between tribes and newcomers. She did not want separation or fear. She believed that different people could share the same earth with understanding. John admired this leader without truly knowing her current face. But deep inside, he knew. It had to be her. That young girl who once looked up at the sky with unbroken spirit must have grown into this brave leader everyone talked about now. He felt a quiet happiness. Even if Kaya never returned to his ranch, he was thankful that her life had grown so beautifully. It was enough for him to know she kept her strength and had become someone others could rely on. But life is not always peaceful. Even as many people tried to move forward with friendship, some individuals still held on to old fears. There were those who did not like that the tribes remained on lands they wanted. They misunderstood the tribe's customs and worried about their future. In the nearby town, John noticed some new faces. Strangers who gathered in small groups and spoke privately with tense expressions. He heard words he did not like. Talk about stopping the Apache people from growing stronger. These men believed they were protecting their homes, but their thoughts were shaped by fear instead of understanding. John tried to calm such talk when he could, reminding people that peace was the best future for everyone. But not all listened. Some believed peace was a risky dream. One afternoon, while John was repairing a fence that had fallen during strong winds, his neighbor Tom rode by. Tom looked nervous. He told John that the new group of settlers had been meeting late at night. They planned to act against the tribes soon. They believed that the Apache leader was making the tribes too confident. They feared their own safety without truly understanding the situation. John felt a cold worry inside. He knew any conflict would hurt both sides. He thought of Kaya. If she really was the leader they spoke of, she would be in the heart of this growing tension. She carried the responsibility of guiding her people, and every choice she made would need great wisdom. The nights felt a little heavier after Tom's visit. John sat outside more often, looking at the stars as if searching for answers. He remembered Kaya's voice as a young child. Soft, yet full of hope. He hoped she still had that same light inside her. Sometimes he would walk a little farther than usual toward the hills, listening to the wind and hoping to hear something familiar. He wondered if Kaya ever thought of him. Did she remember the rancher who had helped her long ago? Did she still hold the promise she once made? He smiled to himself. Life had taught him not to expect much, but hope was free to hold. Then one quiet night, something changed. John saw distant lights moving across the land, many small sparks, like tiny stars traveling over the ground. He heard the faint sound of horses, not one but many, coming closer. His heart began to race. He did not feel fear. Instead, he felt something like recognition, a gentle excitement. Could this be the moment when the past returned to meet the present? John stepped outside his gate and waited under the moonlight, unsure what the night would bring but certain that life had just taken a new turn. The night grew quiet, as the stars sparkled like tiny lamps in the sky. John Carter stood calmly outside his ranch gate, waiting to understand who was coming. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with a strange feeling that something important was about to happen. The soft glow of the moonlight made everything look magical. The sounds of horses grew clearer. Dozens of silhouettes slowly appeared from the distance. John could see the shapes of riders moving gracefully, like part of the desert night itself. He held his breath. These riders were not settlers. Their posture, their harmony with the horses, and the peaceful order in which they traveled, all of it felt familiar, like a memory returning after many years. The horses came to a gentle stop just a few steps away from John's fence. The leader came forward, and as the moonlight touched her face, John felt his heart pause. It was a face he had imagined many times but never knew he would see again. Strong yet kind eyes, long dark hair decorated with simple beads, and an expression full of wisdom. It was Kaya, not the little girl from long ago, but a woman who carried the strength of her people in every movement. She looked at John with eyes full of memory and gratitude. For a moment, neither spoke. Memories were louder than words. The world around them faded away, the desert, the stars, the wind, and only the story of the past filled the space between them. Finally, Kaya smiled, a gentle smile that showed both honor and affection. "I told you I would come back," she said. Her voice was steady, deeper now, but John recognized the same heart inside it. He felt a warmth rise in his chest. John stepped forward with surprise and happiness. "Kaya," he said softly. "You remembered." She nodded. "A promise is a strong thread. It never breaks." Her riders watched the moment in respectful silence. They wore simple clothing with beautiful patterns, telling stories of their tribes, stories of family, courage, rivers, mountains, and journeys. Every rider sat tall and calm, showing dignity without speaking a word. John noticed how they organized themselves, how they protected Kaya without surrounding her too tightly. They believed in her leadership and honored her strength. He felt proud to have once helped someone so special. Kaya looked around the ranch with curious eyes. "Many seasons have passed," she said. "You have cared for this land well." "I talked to be reset," John laughed softly. "It's a quiet life. The land teaches patience." Kaya nodded. "Yes, patience builds peace." John felt comfort in her words. They walked side by side toward the porch, while the riders rested near the open field. John poured water for the horses and invited the group to relax. They accepted quietly, grateful for hospitality. Kaya and John sat together outside his small home. A soft breeze brushed past them, carrying the fresh smell of grass and night air. The moonlight painted silver lines across the porch. John looked at Kaya, amazed at how much she had grown. "You have become a leader," he said gently. Kaya held her head high. "My people needed a voice. I try to speak for them with fairness and truth." "You do well," John replied. "The land needs voices like yours." Kaya looked serious for a moment. "There is something I must tell you," she said. "Some settlers are not comfortable with the peace we hope for. They fear change. They fear what they do not understand." John nodded slowly. He had heard the same worries in town. "I hoped it would not come to this." Kaya placed her hand over her heart. We do not want fear to lead anyone. We want friendship. But some settlers believe that if the tribes grow strong, they will lose control. We must show them kindness and remind them that trust grows when people stand together. John felt admiration rise in him. She really had become someone wise. "How can I help?" he asked. Kaya smiled again, this time with appreciation. "Just by being who you have always been, a man who chooses kindness before fear." The moon climbed higher. The riders rested peacefully, some talking softly, others looking at the stars. Horses softly brushed the ground with their hooves. It was a night full of calm hope, but soon, distant sounds troubled the peace. Torches flickered in the distance like small fires floating toward them. A group of settlers was approaching. Their footsteps rushed and loud on the dirt road. John recognized the tension in the air. He stepped down from the porch, ready to speak calmly if needed. Kaya stood beside him, her presence steady, like a rock in a storm. The settlers stopped a few yards away. Their faces showed worry. They had expected trouble, not peace. They saw the riders but did not understand their purpose. One man stepped forward and called out to John. "What is happening here, John? Why are they here?" John spoke gently. "They are here in peace. Kaya is a leader of her people. She wants friendship." Another man looked uncertain. "We only wish to protect our homes. We don't want trouble." Kaya stepped forward and raised her hand in a calm greeting. Her voice was clear and kind. "Your homes are safe. We do not come to take anything. We want to live side by side in understanding." The settlers looked confused. For a long time, worry had been their guide. They had been told many things that did not match what they were seeing now. John took a breath and walked closer to the settlers. "Fear is a wall," he said. "We can spend our lives building it higher, or we can choose to open a gate." Kaya continued. "We believe in peace. We believe kindness returns when kindness is given." The settlers looked at one another. Their expressions began to change, not completely, but enough to show that worry was slowly leaving their hearts. One older man finally spoke. "Maybe we should learn more about one another, instead of making guesses from far away." Kaya nodded with hope. "Yes, that is how friendships begin." John smiled at her, grateful for her wisdom. The settlers started lowering their torches. Some even greeted the riders shyly. The night air grew warmer, as misunderstanding quietly melted. Kaya turned to John again, her eyes soft with relief. "Tonight, we took the first step," she said. John nodded. "A long road starts with just one step." They walked back toward the porch, where John offered fresh water and simple food. The settlers stayed for a while, talking softly with the riders, asking questions, listening to stories. It was the beginning of something new, a calm future built from shared words. As the night came to an end, the settlers returned to town with lighter hearts. The riders rested peacefully, and John looked at Kaya, knowing that destiny had brought her back not just for him, but for everyone living on this land. Kaya looked up at the stars one more time. "Tomorrow will bring more challenges," she said softly. "But we will face them with courage and care." John answered, "You will not stand alone." Kaya smiled gently and placed her hand on his shoulder. "You gave me a chance to live. Now I will help others live with hope." They both understood that peace was a gift made by choices, simple choices from brave hearts. As dawn slowly touched the sky with colors of gold and soft blue, John felt a powerful calmness inside him. The promise Kaya made long ago had returned not as a simple memory, but as a new beginning for both of their worlds. When the first light of morning arrived, soft and gentle like a quiet promise, John Carter stepped outside and stretched his arms. The long night had brought change, good change. The land around his ranch felt more peaceful, as if the earth itself was relieved that people had finally talked instead of worrying from a distance. Kaya and her riders were already awake. They respected the early morning and believed that the rising sun brought new energy. Some were feeding the horses, while others were preparing small baskets of food they carried with them on journeys. Everything they did was calm and thoughtful. John walked toward Kaya, and she greeted him with a warm smile. She looked refreshed and ready for the day. Her presence felt like strength wrapped in kindness. John admired how naturally she led others without shouting or forcing anything. Just by standing there, she brought calmness. "You did well last night," John said. Kaya shook her head gently. "We did well together. Peace is never made by one person alone." John liked the way she spoke. Her words were simple, but they felt deep. He felt proud, not of himself, but of how far she had come. The girl he once helped had become someone who helped many more. As they spoke, small groups of settlers began to arrive again. This time, there were no worried faces or raised voices. They came carrying baskets of bread, jars of milk, and fruits from their gardens. They wanted to share food as a friendly gesture. The riders gladly accepted, thanking them with polite nods and kind smiles. John watched with a warm heart, seeing strangers slowly become neighbors. Laughter began to replace the silence that once sat between them. Children from the town peeked curiously at the riders' decorations and the beautiful designs on their clothing. The riders showed them beads and feathers, and the children smiled with excitement. Kaya sat with some of the town women, answering questions about her tribe's traditions. She explained how they honored nature, how they shared what they had, and how every person in the tribe was cared for. The women listened with interest, realizing that they and the Apache families wanted many of the same things: safety, comfort, and love for their children. John stepped away for a moment and stared at the hills, thinking of how uncertain things had once been. If someone told him long ago that this day would come, he might not have believed it. He would have doubted that so much trust could grow from fear. Yet here it was, blooming right before his eyes. Later, when the sun reached higher in the sky, Kaya walked with John along the wooden fence that bordered his land. The air smelled fresh from the early dew, and the soft hum of insects mixed with birdsong. "There is something I want to ask you," Kaya said kindly. John looked at her with curiosity. "Anything." She took a slow breath. "The people respect you. They see you as someone fair and honest. You understand both sides. Would you help us continue this peace? Speak for fairness when fear tries to rise again?" John paused. He looked at his simple ranch, his quiet home, the cattle grazing, the little windmill spinning slowly. He loved his peaceful life. He never wanted to be in the center of decisions or lead anything bigger than his own land. But he also knew something important. What happened here this morning was too precious to risk. He had a chance to help protect this friendship and make sure the land remained calm for everyone: children, families, animals, and nature. He nodded with confidence. "Yes, Kaya, I will help you. I will always speak for peace." Kaya smiled with gratitude. Then we walked the same path. As the morning continued, plans were made. Community gatherings would happen once a month, where both settlers and Apache families could share food, stories, and news. They would trade goods in kindness rather than suspicion. People would learn from one another instead of guessing wrongly from afar. Kaya felt hopeful. She saw that these were the first strong steps toward a better future. After some hours, Kaya's riders prepared to leave. They tied their baskets and supplies carefully. The horses shook their heads, as if excited for the journey. John stood next to Kaya as she turned to face the group of settlers who had gathered to say goodbye. "We will come again," Kaya said with a respectful bow. "Let this friendship grow like a tree with deep roots." One of the settlers, the older man from the night before, raised his hand in a friendly wave. "We will be waiting. And next time, you must try my wife's apple pie." Kaya laughed softly, a sound filled with joy. "I look forward to it." John could see she was happy. Not just calm or strong, but truly happy. Making peace was her gift, and she was living her purpose. Then Kaya turned back to John. "You gave me life when I had no voice," she said gently. "Because of you, I stand here today." John shook his head. "No. You found your own strength." Kaya placed her hand lightly over his heart. "Every good choice needs a beginning. You were mine." John felt his eyes warm. Sometimes even strong men feel emotions deeply. He looked at her with pride, and she returned the look with genuine respect. Before she climbed onto her horse, Kaya said one more thing. "You will never be alone again, John Carter. If you ever need help, look to the hills. We will come." He smiled. "And if you ever need a friend, this ranch is always open to you." With a graceful movement, Kaya mounted her horse. The riders lined up behind her. They looked ready and confident, as if the world ahead held many challenges but also many beautiful possibilities. Kaya lifted her hand in farewell. John did the same. Then the horses began to walk, hooves tapping softly against the earth. They traveled toward the hills, where their villages lay hidden among rocks and trees. The riders moved like flowing water, blending with the land they loved. John watched them until they became small silhouettes against the bright horizon. He felt peaceful knowing that every step they took was guided by hope. As the day warmed and the settler families returned home, John stood alone again on his ranch, but this time, the silence felt different. It felt like the beginning of something wonderful. He knew his life had changed in a way that could never be undone. He walked back to his home and sat on the porch. The breeze brushed across his face. He looked toward the hills, where Kaya had disappeared, and smiled. With a heart full of gratitude, he whispered to himself, "She kept her promise." The desert stretched wide around him, with open skies and endless possibilities. Friendship had grown where fear once lived. Two worlds that were once distant were now learning to walk side by side. John Carter rested his hands on his knees and watched the sun climb higher. He knew that tomorrow would bring new work, new conversations, and new chances to protect the peace they had created. He was ready. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warm sun light his face. His life was still simple, still quiet, but now it had a purpose as wide as the sky. And somewhere beyond the hills, a brave leader rode with the wind, guided by honor. Remembering the rancher who once saved her and helped her shape a future filled with understanding and hope. Their story would live not only in their hearts but in the peace that now settled over the land. A peace built from kindness, respect, and a promise kept across 20 long years.